KGC show with Cowboy Hayden. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. The KGC show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the KGC show. Man, it feels good. And it feels good to have a actual in-person guest sitting right next to me. And she's a whole lot more put together than I am. And you're going to see that here in just a few seconds. But we are doing something on this episode of the KGC show that I have the honor of doing. We're introducing a brand new podcast, and it's not really new, but it has a couple episodes out, and I've gotten to executive produce this show alongside the host, Miss Janet Nelsen. So help me welcoming Janet Nelsen and launching the new Creative Mind podcast. Janet, welcome to my show.
Glad to be here.
So first off, you obviously live in Spokane. How are you liking the weather?
Right now it's gorgeous.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is this your favorite time of the season, or do you really like them all?
I love them all.
Yeah.
I like weather. What can I tell you?
Yeah. What's your favorite? When is your favorite time to be out and just outside and enjoying God's green earth?
Boy, fall's gorgeous, spring's beautiful, and summer is
Hot.
I grew up in Wichita. I mean, it had weather, right?
Yeah.
And so I love it all,
Mhm.
including the snow, playing Duck, Duck, Goose, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. Talking about being a kid, huh?
I'm talking about being kids. A few years ago.
Yeah. That was like 5 years ago for you, wasn't it?
Right.
But we're gonna show a lot of sides of you, but you talked to before we get into the real reason why we're here and launching this show, I want to get a little information about the host, because as much as the podcast is, and I've learned this through a buddy of mine, Jeff Panzer, love you, buddy, is as much as it is for an artist or a person, you have to make a name for yourself. So when you think of you and when you think of Janet Nelsen, who is Janet Nelsen?
Who am I? I am first and foremost a lover of God, absolutely hands down. I have 4 incredible children and 3 older ones that are now giving me grandkids, have wonderful spouses. I get to go hang out with them. It's fabulous. And then I have Matthias, and he's 18. There's 19 years between the older 3 and him. And we adopted him, and he is just incredible. And I'm so blessed to have him. I have homeschooled close to 30 years between all that. And I have a passion, absolute passion, to help people understand the different ways people learn, particularly those in creative community and Native Americans. We lived on the Nez Perce Reservation for close to 15 years. And so I have personal friends there. I understand a lot of the frustrations and the issues. And so Matthias thinks like they do, and it's just amazing. And I love their culture. And so it's just been, so there's where my passion goes. And that's why we've started the Creative Mind podcast, because people that help me help Matthias, many from the Native American community, different tribes throughout the United States, they are going, get this information out there, because it just wasn't out there. And the education community just started about the time Matthias was in junior high to start thinking about what to do with these creative people. And so it's a work in progress for the education community. But as parents, we need to understand. We need to be able to help our kids. And that's Matthias's heart in this, is that the kids are touched and don't go through what he did. He's given me total permission to tell his story. He's not ready himself to do it, but I'm sure in 10 years, he's going to be able to be his own spokesperson.
That dude is, I'm blown away every day that I hang out with you guys, that I see the growth just daily and just
Yeah.
doing everything that he does daily. There's growth in that, and you can really see. I know he mentioned to me about doing a glow arc thing, and I know that he's really doing his best at it. And talk to us a little bit about how Matthias has impacted what we are about to get into. How has he? That's kind of the entire base of the show is revolved around how Matthias thinks,
Yeah,
correct?
correct. Well, when we adopted him, we had no idea. We don't know his parents. We don't know his heritage. We don't know anything about that. And to our knowledge, he's not Native American. However, I had put him in a homeschool group, so he wasn't, because it's basically raising a single child. So he needed to be with other kids. He needed to have those interactions and do some great projects, all that kind of stuff. So he really enjoyed through 6th grade. But a lot of the stuff, 4 days out of the week, I was in charge of teaching him. And when it came to the more doing oriented things, kindergarten through 3rd, no problem. He could do it. But when it came to like history and understanding things and reading things to understand it the way a lot of us think, he was lost. And so he took the national test, and the scores were all over the place, but a lot of them were low. Even though I knew we'd gone over it, it wasn't there. It just wasn't there. So as a mom, it just hurt. And I went about find out what his learning style is, because I've gone through this before. I was doing everything, let's do visual, let's do audio, let's do kinetic, let's do some more social. What is going to work for you? And nothing worked until I basically handed him like the history book, and he read the chapter himself, and he did his own observations and questions, and he drew along with that, different things to help him remember. And then he could take a test on history, and it was all there. But using somebody else's questions ain't gonna happen. But then we put him into, and the school was doing some really positive things. He was had learned how to read chapter books, those kind of things, because graphic books, he would have stayed there if it hadn't been that we intentionally made that switch. And they helped us do that. So there was a lot of great things that happened. And then we hit 7th grade. And when I found out, and the teachers found out, is that they didn't realize that he wasn't getting things. And so we had him tested, and he was a sensory learner with a process weakness. But the information that was given back to us was like 3 small things. And 2 of them, basically, Matthias went, I'm not doing that. But he needs more time to do some tests, particularly essays. He needs time to be able to think, take a break, come back, and write some more, think, take a break, come back. He needs time to process, because he thinks in pictures, not words.
That's what I want to talk to you about. When you found out that he could work, like he understands pictures better than he does words, did you find it more easier to communicate with him in that sense?
Well, it started to really make sense, but teaching myself how to do that took time. And then you have to ask the question, well, if he thinks in words to do some of these things in school, how do you not use words? That back and forth. We listened to a preacher recently, and we always come back after doing something like that and go, what's your takeaway? And he was struggling to put it into words.
Mhm.
He just was struggling. And I got the essence of what he was meaning. So I said, you mean all the fishes going one way except one's going the other way? And he went, yes. And then I could explain what that meant even further. But it told, just putting it into picture form was it made sense. But I had to teach myself how to make sure that I have those picture forms.
Mhm. And it's also it's not only affecting you, but how has it affected his siblings too? Because it's one thing to be adopted into a family, but then to realize that maybe like we all think differently. Like we are
Mhm.
all manually operatedly different.
Exactly.
And so how did his siblings take to all of that? Or were they when they kind of knew all about that type of stuff, thinking in pictures, they were a lot older, so it didn't really affect them all that much.
Well, they had been praying for him since the older three were very little, so they really wanted him. But being adopted, you always feel like you're not as much loved as if you were biological.
Oh,
It's
he
just
is
a
loved.
feeling. But he's found out through all of this that he's absolutely as much loved and cared about. Um, my oldest daughter, Nelena, has an education and social work master's degree. So she was fascinated. She's taken it actually into her work. And one gal that she worked with, she said, I've never heard it before, but this is my learning style.
Mhm.
Um, so she's actually been using it in her work. My son, Jed, he's interested, but he lives in his own life. But his wife is an educator and trying to walk her through how does it fit into the educational community because it's not considered, and it shouldn't be, a disability.
Mhm.
But that means they're in sequential high word classrooms that they don't fit in.
Mhm.
And so they struggle. Um, it's just hard. But the teachers really want to teach them. And yet, because of the structure of our education community right now, it's all about, getting on that ladder of higher learning, that logic stuff. And they're not even on that ladder. They just aren't. And so it's been talking her through that of no, you don't bring in special need teacher when it's not a special need. They're not open to that. They don't have the money and finances for that. It's not going to, they're not going to, somebody's not going to come in and rescue him at that point. When the teachers lost him, it was up to me.
Mm.
And so we homeschooled him for 2 years, caught him up through summers, and then he did a senior year last year. He wanted to graduate from public school, and they had him take the GED first. And so proud of him because the GED is basically, they do have pictures with them anymore because there's so many kids like him. That's really cool. And then, but a lot of it's just taking a paragraph or paragraphs and taking information out of it, all that sequential thinking. And it's very difficult. And so, but he did it.
Mhm.
And then
He did.
they had a special program that he got to be in that these kids, I'm told from the teacher, are flowing into this program that are very creative, all types of creative. And Matthias, of course, walked into one of the classes, his electives, and the teacher going, "Oh, you're here. Let's put you on Photoshop." And then he went to do whatever he needed to get done. And he came back, and Matthias had put together a whole poster about Seattle, with the Space Needle and all the different things. Yeah, we have one up here from Spokane
Yeah.
that he did. And the teacher came back and went, "Oh, I think I know who you are," And so he loves Photoshop. He loves Illustrator. He's really good at both of them, very talented artist.
Mhm.
This is just not trained.
Mhm.
And yet he has that visual aspect to him. And so the teachers let him do some work for them as far as posters for events. And he did his own senior, what are they called? Cards,
Yeah.
the invitations. There you go. So he did all that. Super proud of him. But it's been a tough road when your child gets hurt.
Yeah.
Like that. They think it's about them, even though it's about the education community not understanding them. But they have a hard time figuring themselves out because you're non-sequential. Most teachers think about ninth grade, you should figure yourself out, right? No, the closest that I've ever heard is like 10th. They start figuring, and that's even starting to figure themselves out. I had an art teacher basically said in 10th grade, she found out she had to have pictures to figure out history. I'm going, you think in pictures, why wouldn't you know that? But she didn't really put that piece together until 10th grade.
Mhm.
And so asking them to understand themselves earlier, they can't. They just can't.
Mhm.
So, but I'm so thankful. All the ladies that I'm having on the Creative Mind podcast, think in somewhat similar ways to him. And so they help me understand my son and help me to put together things to teach him, what would work, what doesn't, how do I do history, how do I do literature, tell me how this works to help him help himself. And when we all, about a year ago, it was like, you've got to get this information out there because it wasn't out there. And the teacher from public school said, it's not out there. And so I'm going, okay, well, how do I put it into a form, right? That makes sense to people like Matthias. And so I am writing a book. I'm going to finish that, but I'm still researching it through these podcasts. But actually talking to them personally, they have so much wisdom, so much understanding of how they work and how they can maneuver in life that is rich and helping us understand them, helping us understand how to help our children. Whether you're a social worker helping somebody that thinks like this, or you're in the dentist's office working with them and they struggle with scheduling, or whatever it is to help us help them. It's the podcast is all about understanding how they think. And it'll be interesting to see how it flows and what guests I have. I'm interested. Many of them are Christians, but I'm interested in having Muslims, seven drum, whatever. The religion isn't the point. The point is let's understand how each other thinks so that we can work effectively together. They are very much in tune with the spiritual world. Some people are uncomfortable with that, but they're going to be involved somehow in the spiritual world because they have an understanding of it. It affects them all the time.
I'm gonna just for 1 second, and because ABC show, and so funny moments happen here. Tidbit. I've only had two people to carry my entire interview for me and do all my work for me, and those two people are my dear friend Ron Moore Jr. and Janet Nelson sitting right here. That was incredible. I've never seen anybody just take a couple questions that I did and you took it and ran with it. But on a more serious note, what is something when people watch this show, and I'll have to say that a proud episode that I've seen already in the makings is one that you did with my mother. And I know that my mother has helped a lot
Yes.
with Matthias. So can you talk to us a little bit about how my mother has kind of helped you in some way understanding Matthias?
Um, I'm a life coach, so I was life coaching her, and for feedback, when we talked about Matthias and how he thought and how she thought. So that's how she paid me. So it was really this cool relationship that happened, and we ended up raising our boys together. Um, but she helped me figure out like science. For her, like when she was in high school, she was trying to figure out all the inner ear things,
Mhm.
and she used a conch shell, but on the interview, she's talking about the conch shell, and you have things inside of the conch shell. So it made sense
Yeah.
to her to use that association and the importance of associations for her, and particularly science, but in other ways as well. So it was helping me be specific. How do I take this concept and make it make sense to Matthias? What does he need to do this? So I could make it more relevant and put it into his long-term memory. They can do so much in the short-term memory,
Mhm.
but that doesn't help. Then they feel like they haven't learned because it's not in the long term.
Mhm.
And so, how do you get it into the long term? Well, you've got to get into it some kind of visual form that they're making the connection to.
Mhm.
And then it becomes kind of an icon, like a computer, right? They can hit that icon, and here all that information is behind all those words and all that kind of stuff. That information is under that icon, but they got to find the icon.
And like I said, my mom's, I'm not just saying it because she's my mom, but I think that anybody that watches these podcasts that you're doing, are gonna be able to take something from this. And what is something that you want them to take away from it?
um, I think one of the things one of the ladies says is, well, your mom said actually, he said, I learned when I found out it was a learning style to have patience with myself.
Mhm.
Um, that's huge. I'm hoping that together we'll learn that we can use pictures and associations and um, stories, those analogies. Those are so good. Those types of things, because in actuality, about a third probably of our population at least uses some kind of pictures. Um, I found that out when I was at a women's conference, and the speaker asked, how many of you think in some types of pictures at times? Like I said, a third raised their hand. And ICF, the International Coaching Association, now has told all coaches to use the visuals when they're talking to their clients because it's so powerful internationally. So learning how to use those types of things. Um, but mostly, but I really want people like your mom to find out they're intelligent.
Mhm.
They are very gifted. They can learn. They're capable people, and take that stress of, but I don't, but I can't, out of it. To realize they just have to have patience and they can do it. They just have to figure it out and help them figure themselves out. And that's what's happened. I'm watching the ladies I'm working with literally blossom
Mhm.
just because they're finding out, oh, I can.
Mhm.
I can think well. I'm not so different. I'm not stupid. You know what I mean? And it's just amazing. And the other part of that is taking it to our kids. Often somebody that thinks like this often have kids that think like this. And we need to be able to talk to our teachers and help them understand how our student learns. We need to be able to, at home, put it into a fixed picture form. Or like your mom said, she sits down with her daughters and she goes, because they're also sensory like she is. And so she goes, this is what I see of this paragraph. What are you seeing? And it may be very different. It may be similar, but asking that question, what is it that you see? What is it that you were hearing? Instead of asking the same questions, expecting everybody to be able to come up with the same answer.
Yeah. And it's inspiring to watch, even my mom, talking about that. It's so cool to watch you guys all come together, all you ladies coming together for this creative mind podcast. And I would say that I need to talk more about the show, but she said everything. So there's nothing really for me to do except to say goodnight, folks. But I kind of don't know how to wrap this up because it's never happened to me before. But um, what, how, when you were kind of thinking about the way, because you mentioned that you were trying to figure out a way to get this out, what was it that made sense to you to do a podcast? Like what was it about it that made you say, let's do a podcast?
I had to look at my son and say, how would you relate to this? How do I help you understand it? Most of them have been told they can't read and shown they can't read because they can't answer the right questions, the right answer. And so that becomes a real frustration. I am going to finish the book because it has a certain audience. However, one of the things I found with Matthias is he will take a video and then and if it has information like this, he will play it over and over till he gets it if he needs to. So a podcast makes sense to get the information out for them to really be able to process through it. They get to do it over and over again if they need to. And they relate to people really well. Like Matthias, if you want to teach him facts, you add a story to it, okay? So he's into football. He can tell you all kinds of things about the different players.
Seahawks. Oh.
But the thing is, the each player becomes very real to him as a person.
Seriously.
And he relates to them. And then he can remember all kinds of facts about them. But without being able to relate to them, the facts would be not there. I mean, they'd be gone. And so it's that they have people to relate to go, I get it. Mary makes sense to me and how she struggles. Oh yeah, I got this, and then they remember some of the facts. Oh, I get that. I do that. You mean I can, oh, that would work for me.
Yeah.
See, they can make connections because they have the person.
Yeah. And you, just 1 second on Matthias. Matthias is my best friend. And so this podcast is very special to me because, like she said, she helped raise me and my mom helped raise Matthias. And we are, I'm so proud to be a part of this because when she came to me with this idea and she said, would you be down? My only answer was yes. I didn't want to say no, but I also couldn't say no because of how much what she was passionate about it with me, talking to me about pitching me this idea. And she was passionate about it. And it's that same passion that she's sitting here talking to you guys here on my show today. And it interprets into me. And it, she has a hard time getting me back sometimes. But I'm honored to be a part, and thank you for even considering me to have a small portion in this show. And what can you tell fans to expect of your show, and what can you tell them going forth what would be your best advice for doing a show like this?
Best advice. What we're going to do is I'm asking for more people that are creative, that would be willing to interview. And we're just going to have fun, really. I have fun with my guests. What are you thinking? I have a loose outline of, the way Matthias thinks. And then we just kind of go through. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Who are you? How do you think? I'm not worried about what you think as much as how you think. And what would you like my audience to know to help you and people like you? Because everybody thinks uniquely, but all of us are similar in some ways. You're not out there by yourself. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. There's a purpose and place for you in the world. I had an incredible conversation with one lady that has a daughter who is sensory kinetic. And how do you deal with that? And what does that mean when it comes to school and so forth? And we're having that conversation. And I have one of my guests that is the same way. So there's all kinds of things going on as you're in public, just talking to people working differently to understand them and work more effectively with people. So I'm looking forward it's just interesting.
Mhm.
If you're interested in people, you'll find it interesting. It's just two people in having a conversation of enjoying the fact that we are so unique and different, and there's a place for everyone.
That's right. And when I work on this show, and there's only one word when I think of this show, and it's unity, because of how much it brings people together.
That's it.
And that's our goal with this show, is to not polar opposite people, but to unite people and to think that you're not alone. Like, you have a voice just as much as we do.
Yes.
And we hope we're not wanting to be voices for you, but we do want to represent you well and just feel like you are heard. And we hope that we can represent you well. And if you feel like this, comment down below, share with us how you feel and how you think about not only this episode, but what you think about what she said today, because I guarantee you somewhere watching along this, somebody can relate to this, because she said that there's a lot of people that think like this. Well, maybe it could be on my channel too.
Mhm.
And and just kind of, because my show is about music, and how do you think that using pictures relies it over into music?
Well, actually, I have a brother that I just did a podcast with who actually thinks in pictures and words. And so when he's doing writing songs, he's actually thinking in pictures.
Talk to us about that. Talk to us about how that interview went, and don't give too much away of that interview, but kind of talk to us a little bit about.
It's fascinating. I never really talked to my brother about actually how he thought. So this was really fascinating to hear that he does think both. He is sequential, and so his wife is from Russia, so he knows more of the international community. So it's fascinating to hear that particular podcast. You'll be interested in seeing that, but that's not unusual for musicians to also think in pictures.
Mhm.
You said
William Lee Golden.
William Lee Golden paints pictures as well as does music.
Yes.
It's not unusual for them to do both.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see what other things come up that fit together that I never thought of.
Shout out to William Lee Golden. We love you, buddy. And you're my favorite ever human being to ever walk this face of the earth, like Jeff Panzer. Love both of you. But Janet, I just want to say thank you so much again for letting me be a part of this show, and thank you for coming on to my show to talk a little bit about what you have going on. And will you come back on when the book is finished and talk about the book?
Absolutely.
Well, I think you should. And thank you so much. And I can't wait to watch your career take off. And thank you for letting us to get to know more about Janet, more than the creative mind. And I love you. And I thank you dearly.
Thank you, Guy.
I love you
appreciate
dearly.
you.
And we'll see you the next time on the KGC show with the impaired KGC. Love you.
Yeehaw! The KGC show, the cowboy Caden. The KGC show, the cowboy Caden. Everybody knows, everybody knows.